So I'm here today with Myra. Myra, it's great to see you. And I know we just wrapped up our coaching together and appreciate you jumping on. Really just want to hear a little bit about you, your coaching practice, where you're at before you hired me, where you're at now, and kind of get into specifics there. But it's great to see you as always.
Thanks, Austin, and thank you very much for all your support. Yeah, I have a very small leadership coaching practice. I've been doing this for a few years, but mostly to corporate, so B2B, and this is the first time in the last year that I've been doing it sort of more on a sort of one-on-one to consumer basis. And I found I've been coaching for a while, so it's not my content because that's really goes down quite well with my clients. But my getting onto LinkedIn and using LinkedIn as a platform, I was finding it really difficult to close on the sales calls to convert. And so I was getting the sales calls, so the campaigns were working, but I just wasn't closing. I think it was probably because I've never had to sell in that manner before in a 30-minute call, dig quickly, and normally a lot of my work is done when the information goes out to a corporate, so there's very little selling involved thereafter. Working with you has made a difference to how I think, how I approach sales calls. It's definitely changed my close percentage on my sales calls.
Yeah, because you came, like you said, from the corporate side where you were selling the coaching to the corporations, which is obviously very different than selling directly to the consumer because the corporations already have the budgets. They've already set aside hundreds of thousands, sometimes millions of dollars for leadership development, leadership coaching, and for people like yourselves. But when it goes B2C and you're selling directly to the consumer and they're the ones that have to pull out a credit card and actually pay thousands of dollars, it's a totally different ball game. And I know that was something you were really struggling with, and we were kind of digging into that throughout our time together. Where was close percentage when you hired me, and then where is close percentage now?
It was about 10 to 12%. And now, ever since we've been working together, it's come to 35 to 40%. One month it was every second call I was converting. So that was a great month for me. So definitely I would say 35 to 40%. So a huge jump. You have changed my perspective on selling for sure.
It's all perspective on how you look at things. And most coaches, consultants, closers, they're just too close because it's their business or their offer. It's like the thing that they're selling. And it's easy for me to come in from a third party vantage point from kind of up here and over here and say, hey, have you ever thought about it this way? And it's like, no, but I like that. And that makes a lot of sense. And I know we had a lot of those aha
Yeah, no, and
moments.
you're very good at that because you're able to see the wood from the trees where I might be really stuck in there, and I can see it, and I'm unable to detach. But you're very good at seeing that and just sorting the getting rid of the fluff. So I really enjoyed our work together. I wish it wasn't over.
Yeah. Well, if you had to pinpoint one thing, like the biggest shift that you made, maybe it was an intangible in your mindset, maybe it was a tangible in the way you show up to the call. Like, if you had to pick one thing, the biggest thing that changed throughout our time together, what would you say that was?
I think the fact that I'm so much more relaxed now in most calls, I might still have a bad day, but so much more relaxed now in most calls. And I think it was your discovery, the discovery section of your methodology, which sort of just sort of ask the probing questions, keep asking, sort of dive deeper into the pain, create that moment of need for the client, and then rather than sort of diving into the sales pitch, which is what I was doing, I was asking a couple of questions, and the moment I recognized that this was a viable client for me, I knew it, but they still didn't know it, and I would start on my sales pitch. So I think that was for me that's one of the most defining moments, is to take it easy on that, keep at discovery, because that's really where you will end up handling most of the objections up front rather than getting them much later. That was for one. And also somewhere in my mind, and maybe it's because of the region that I operate in the Middle East, this whole thing about talking a lot about money, in terms of, it's still a cultural shift here, but I think get the credit card, try and close it on the call, which I have done twice now, rather than sending an invoice later because you've lost, half the time you've lost them. That, and also digging a bit deeper about, okay, what are you on right now? I would ask what they're looking to move to, but I would hesitate to ask what they're on. And I think that was another mind shift for me that you did, because you said, well, they're here to ask for your help, so they have to be candid. And you if you want to help them, you've got to ask them all the relevant questions. So I think these two things were very important for me.
Yeah. I think my favorite thing that you said in that was handling the objections up front by asking deeper discovery questions. You can be super proactive in getting everything out on the table and figuring out timing and spouse and money and all these different objections that they might have. And it's a lot better to handle them proactively than it is reactively after you've explained the program, after you've given them the price, like after you've been
Yeah.
on the call for 57 minutes. Handling them reactively, you kind of feel like a salesperson, where when you
Yeah.
handle them proactively, you feel like a sales professional, because you're handling these obstacles and objections. That way they can't sit in the prospect's mind and start to kill the deal over time.
That's right. And I really always I go back to what you told me. You said, when you go to a doctor's practice and he asks you two questions, how confident do you feel that the guy really knows what your problem is? And I keep thinking of that. And because otherwise I would sometimes hesitate, because I didn't want people to think I was probing too much. But then, hey, I mean, they're there. We need to probe, and they need to know that we know what we know, because otherwise, how they're going to know, right? No, so that's another mind shift that you did for me.
Yeah. I mean, you imagine you walk into the doctor and they're like, poke you and like, does that hurt? And you're like, yep. And they're like, you need brain surgery. It's like, whoa, like time out. And then you might not tell him that you're kind of sketched out and a little nervous. You would just say, hey, thanks, I'll be in touch. And then you would immediately go to another doctor's office. And that happens to coaches and consultants every day of the week. They don't ask enough questions, so they'd never earn the right to pitch the prospect. And then the prospect's like, oh, yeah, cool. Maybe just send me some information, send me a breakdown email. And then they instantly go and hire someone else. And the reason they
Yes.
hired the other person is because that person took the time to ask more
Yeah.
thought-provoking, deep questions. And now that prospect has confidence that
Yeah.
that coach actually could diagnose and solve and give a solution. So
Yes, absolutely right. And I think, like you said, we may be great at what we do, but that doesn't mean we were born selling. And this is all a technique. There's a methodology to it. And I love your framework. I just love it. I love your methodology. I think it made sense from the first time I heard you, and it made sense then, and it makes a lot of sense now.
I
Yeah.
love that. That's awesome. Well, Myra, it's great to see you as always. Looking forward to staying connected. And if you need anything, don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Austin. Thank you.